Hi, my name is Anthony Freund. I'm a graduate student at DePaul, finishing up my master's, doing an ethics topic. Tonight, my topic is going to be on video games. I think this is a really important topic for a number of reasons. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the usual problems that we face as a society with video games, but to also shed some light on some things that a lot of people really aren't aware that goes on inside the video game industry. First off, what is a video game? Uh, According to Wikipedia, it's a game. It's an electronic game that involves human interaction with the user interface to generate visual feedback. The history of video games is that they've really been around since the dawn of computers. In the late 40s, early 50s, the ideas were there. There is some noted games that were found to be as developed as early as 1951. Some other games that people are really familiar with are games like Space Wars, Pong, some of those type of games. Wasn't long after, in the very early 70s, that the Odyssey was developed by Magnavox and brought into the home. Was quite a leap forward in the exposure of our country and to video games. Wasn't long after that the 80s really, late 70s and early 80s saw a huge amount of very classic games that were brought in. They saw them everywhere from shopping malls, pizza parlors. They became a large part of my life as a youth. I remember often going to the malls just to see the latest video games. It's definitely something that permeates young men and a lot of their activity. Today's video games are on nearly every device. You can find them on the web, PC, mobile. All these areas of computing have been affected with video games. So why was this topic even considered for me? It's mostly there's such a social impact of video games. Interestingly enough, the age of the average video game player is now in their early 30s. This is 10 years older than just a decade ago. In the last 3 years, video game playing has increased by more than 50%. A lot of this, I believe, is due to the mobile model that's out there, with the ability to download seemingly free games, the affordability of mobile devices as well. A lot of people are constantly looking for new things, entertainment things to find on their phone, and games are the most popular apps downloaded in the app stores now. More than 1 billion hours each day is spent on video games alone. One of the popular ones out there is Candy Crush. They are known to have made over $1 million a day now on one video game alone. Interestingly enough, in 2013, the American Psychiatric Association decided that there was enough evidence that existed to include that video games addiction as a diagnosis in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. There's a lot of noted cases out there of people playing games till they die, of people becoming deluded from them to go out and do some very terrible things, to live out their video game fantasies in the real world, driving cars too fast, maybe playing a little Need for Speed on the road, and unable to separate fantasy from reality. So what are some of the good uses for video games? Well, video games have been used for math, history, to learn languages, even to type. I became a good typist as a young kid by constantly trying to beat the invaders to type them out of the sky, and I had to do that by typing the correct letters and becoming very quick at that. That was a very good use for video games. There's also games out there that teach ethics, that give the users the opportunity to pick between good and bad, to reward good and bad behavior. Games are also used for simulations such as combat simulations, flight simulators, things that would be dangerous in the real world to try to learn. They give us the opportunity to try to even avoid situations such as combat. Uh, they're also used for relaxation therapy, a lot of good things that the medical industry uses just to help people with mental conditions and things. Games do play a good part in that. They're also good for human interaction, group participation, social recreation. We all can think of getting together and probably playing some games with our family, friends, and having a very good time. They give us opportunities to compete with one another and to have fun, and we even use them in my industry to encourage people to exercise. So what are some of the bad? Well, games can be abused. They can become an escape mechanism from society uh, and from nature in general. They have been used to replace real relationships with imaginary ones. We've probably all heard of the case of someone marrying their cyber girlfriend. Uh, Games can interfere with learning, or they can even replace it if the addiction becomes too strong. Games have also been used to allow people to pursue unethical things such as Grand Theft Auto. There's a lot of violent games that let you act out fantasies of violence, murder, and a lot of unethical behavior. Games have even caused parents to be bad parents. We've all heard the headlines of people beating other people up on Black Friday to get the latest Xbox. Well, those are some of the simple things I think that we all probably understand. But what I want to really get on is what goes on in the gaming industry. The game research is a big business. It's a $1 billion industry. There's a lot of money poured into understanding video game behavior, addiction, and not for the right reasons. A lot of these companies exist that are tracking users' behaviors and clicks to understand what drives them. They've compiled massive scientific data now into the human psychology, and they in turn give this information to the video game companies to use so they can literally addict their players. We see in the mobile industry that this is often the case where there's kind of a bait and switch mechanism where users think they're getting something free. So, Candy Crush is probably the worst culprit of this. It's not uncommon for people to spend $200, $300, $400 a week, but in very small amounts, thinking they're really getting something pretty cheap. Another thing is that companies with this psychological knowledge have purposely written games to try to manipulate and addict their users for financial gain. These companies have admitted to set up their users to keep the carrot dangling, but to let the player lose just enough to keep them interested in the game with the hopes of winning. So I think right there is the biggest concern that I have for the game industry. It's definitely one I love. I think it's a great industry out there. But my position officially is that the technology, video game technology, is a technology that, like all technologies, can be used for good or bad. Glorifying violence, theft, or murder is not an ethical use. Spending millions of dollars for the purpose of manipulating people emotionally, physically, socially, or psychologically for financial gain is unethical and should be reined in. I think it should be escalated in our courts and really dealt with on a very fundamental level. Games should be written to promote and reward good social and ethical decisions. Last but not least, my question is, does knowing how your audience will respond to certain stimuli and events make it acceptable to manipulate them? What if that knowledge is used to just give them a good experience or even for a good purpose? What if it's provoking them to violence? How would you deal with that? What would happen in a court of law if you admitted that you knew you were deliberately frustrating your users by making them fail a quest and would cause them to make snap judgments and spend more money on your game? So I think right there's the fundamental question that has to be is what really are our motives and agendas when we create video games, and for what purposes are we really controlling users' responses and behaviors? Well, that concludes my ethics discussion. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed my time at DePaul. Thank you.